So let's look at some basic examples of how to use pipelining and working with objects in PowerShell. We're going to be doing this throughout the rest of the course, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it, but I want to break out for you some of the basics so that you have an understanding as we go forward. So the next command we want to take a look at is the get-member command. So we'll do help get-member, because this command is going to help us to be able to see what type of properties can we work with from a specific command. So we can see that it gets properties and methods. So properties are basically the things that are attached to an object that have a value. Methods are things that we can do to a specific object. Mostly we're going to be working with the properties. So we're going to focus really on the properties. So I'm going to get out of here. So we're going to do a get-service. And then we pipe this into get-member. And that's going to bring back for us a list of, let's go back up here and let's pipe this into more so we can see this from the top down. So this is going to give us a list of the names of all of the different members of this specific object that we get from get-service. So there's some aliases associated with it, some methods, and then as we start getting to the bottom, we have some properties associated with it. So notice we have a property for display name, a property for the service name, and these may be string values, so they'd be alphanumeric, and notice that some with can stop, can shut down, that's a Boolean value. So that's going to be a 1 or a 0, which is important as you're going through and filtering, which is the process of taking an object and working with the data to get out a specific subset. You need to make sure that you understand what type of data you're looking at in this specific property. So let's take a look at get-service. And what I want to do is I want to select from get-service the objects and just the properties of name and status. So you can do that by using the select object and then putting in the values separated by a comma. So I put in name and status. And so what that brings back for me is it brings me back a list of the service name and then the service status. I can also do that and I can send that out to a file. So this is the get something, do something, output something portion. I could send this out to a file, scripts, services.txt, and that would send that to a file, and we'll take a look at what that file looks like in Notepad. So that gives me a list of the name and the status. So a very simple example, but it shows you how you can select the different properties from your commands and then be able to view those and send those to another file. So let's take a look at another option here. Say that we do a get-service, and this time I just simply want to show the example we showed before where we're only grabbing the services that have a status that's equal to, stopped. So where-object allows me to take a look at the objects that have been brought over to me, look at that entire collection and go, hey, I just want the objects from that list where the status of each of those objects is equal to stopped. And see, that brings back for us just the list of the services that are stopped. And then what I could do is I could then move on to another topic we're going to talk about, is I could format that in a list format, which gives me a more detailed view than the table format that we had before of our different services. So those are just some basic examples of how we can use pipeline and work with the different objects. The big thing to keep in mind is that as long as you have a command that has an output, which they all do, you can take that output and then do something else with it within the pipeline. And it's kind of one of those trial and error things where you just kind of play through it to see how it works. And that's pipelining in objects. So next we're going to talk about formatting.